Howdy, I'm Mike Freeman, and welcome to the channel that's for anyone that loves everything about cooking and the great outdoors. In this episode, I'm going to share with you my version of the original No Frills diner staple that's no nonsense when it comes to flavor, and the humble Depression-era origins of this American classic, the Onion Burger. All that today on Fat Mike's Pit. The Onion Burger. It's been a part of the lexicon of American food since the late 1920s, during the early years of the Great Depression. However, few people outside of a small town in Oklahoma named El Reno can tell you that this modest menu item that would become an icon of American eats was actually an invention of necessity. Now, as we all learned in history class, times were rough in those days. Even if you were fortunate enough to have a job during this period, you were finding it a hard row to hoe just to make ends meet. And having the disposable income that you could justify doling out of the local diner was hard to come by. In order to keep customers coming through the door, a gentleman by the name of Ross Davis came up with a plan. Davis owned a joint along Route 66 in downtown El Reno called the Hamburger Inn. His idea was to couple a 5-cent hamburger patty with half of a shredded onion and fry up the combination on his flat top. Davis would smash balls of uncooked hamburger down into the frying onions. The shredded onions would then become embedded deep into the meat, causing the sweet flavor to be infused into the burger as it cooked. This not only made for a tongue-popping burger, it created the illusion of a bigger burger, but most of all, it was cheap. His invention was enough to sustain the Hamburger Inn through the Depression, and you'll find his establishment is still serving them today, along with 2 other local hangouts, Sid's Diner and Johnny's Grill. Folks in El Reno are proud of the fact that their town has become known as the onion burger capital of the world, and they've celebrated this every year in the month of May since the El Reno Main Street program established the first El Reno Fried Onion Burger Day in 1988. The festivities include the cooking of the world's largest onion burger, a monster weighing in at over 750 pounds. Now that you had a little bite of the history behind the Onion Burger, let's get over to the pit and I'll show you how to make my version of this Epicurean embodiment of American entrepreneurial ingenuity. Welcome to the pit. It's another fine fall day, a great day to be grilling up some onion burgers. And believe me, you're going to want to try this. Now, the traditional onion burger calls for a lot of onions, and this recipe is no exception. We're going to be making 3 burgers today, and I don't have any really big onions, so I'm going to be using 3 of the largest onions I've got. These onions need to be peeled and cut in half so we can slice them up into rings. Now, you use whatever onions you want for this. I'm using plain old yellow onions, and here's why. We want these onions to have the same sweet, rich flavor that you would find in French onion soup. You would think that sweet onions like Vidalia would work best, but that's not necessarily the case. An onion's flavor has 2 components, its sugar content and its sulfur content. The lower the sulfur content, the sweeter the taste. Both sugar and sulfur will be lost in the cooking process. How much depends on the onion's juiciness. Sweet onions are juicier, so they lose more of these flavor components, and the results, while tasty, aren't as mouth-watering as yellow onions will be. Now, you need these onions to be sliced really thin to get that melt-in-your-mouth texture we want. So to do this, I'm going to use something that was first introduced to me by my brother-in-law, a fantastic cook in his own right, by the way. It's a tool called a mandolin, and my knife skills truly suck. In fact, they're downright cringeworthy. If yours are that bad, then a mandolin provides a simple and easy way to slice up just about any fruit or vegetable as consistently thick or thin as you want it to be. And as you can see, it's fast too. This is a valuable tool to have, whether you cook in the kitchen or on the patio. They can be found pretty much anywhere, and you can get yourself a good one for as little as $25. So even if your knife skills are good, I encourage you to get one of these. Just make sure you use the guard whenever you are slicing with it. Believe me, I can tell you from experience, these things will slice through a fingertip as easily as it slices through this onion. Okay, now it's time to break up these slices into rings. Make sure you take the time to get them all broken up, and don't worry if you tear a few. If you want, you can take the time to poke the core rings out of them, but it's just fine if you leave them in. Alright, here we've got about 2 tablespoons of salt, and we're going to sprinkle this in and toss the onions thoroughly so it gets all over them. Remember when I talked about how sweet onions are a lot juicier than yellow onions? Well, that's another reason I'm using yellow onions. You see, these onions need to be really soft and noodly when we cook them on the grill, and along with cutting them really thin, you need to get a lot of moisture out of them to get that result. The salt is going to draw moisture out of the onion rings. Now don't worry about them being too salty. A lot of that salt is going to be carried away from these onions by the juice it draws out. Now you're going to want to put these onions in a colander so the juice and salt has a way to drain away from the onion rings. Then we'll put that colander down into a bowl to catch those draining juices. Cover them with a towel and let them sit on the counter for about 3 to 4 hours. Don't refrigerate them though. I found that this tends to slow the process. Now here we've got 2 pounds of ground chuck, an 80-20 mix. Ground chuck with this meat to fat ratio makes for the best burgers in my opinion. It's just the right texture to get a firm, solid burger that's not too greasy. I'm going to season this with some of Fat Mike's Hoosier Rub. It's a real flavorful creation of mine. It's got a little brown sugar, some onion powder, chili powder, and a couple of other ingredients. Of course, you can use whatever you want for seasoning. They're your burgers, right? Make sure you get that seasoning mixed up well into the meat so you don't get any concentrated pockets of flavor in there. Alright, while we get these coals fired up, let's go back to those onions. This is just the way you want them, soft and noodly. Stop laughing now, this is a family show. Now I'm going to kick up these onions a little bit, so I'm going to use some more of my Hoosier Rub. Just sprinkle as much as you want all over them onions and mix it in thoroughly. This is completely optional. These onions will turn out just fine without any seasoning at all. The folks here at the pit just love the flavor that Hoosier Rub adds. Now that we've got our nice hot coals spread out and the grill set up for indirect cooking, we're going to get things started. You're going to need to get yourself some olive oil, a little butter, and a flat surface to use as a griddle top. You don't need anything fancy. A plain old cookie sheet works fine for me. I'm making 3 onion burgers, so I'm going to cut 3 thick pats of butter and place them on my griddle. We need some fat underneath these onions so they don't burn, and also to get them caramelized to bring out that rich onion flavor. Alright now, you're going to want to put your griddle directly over the hot coals. This will start that butter to melting pretty quickly. While it melts, I'm going to use my old knife here to spread that melting butter out over the griddle top a bit. Once you get your butter melted down some, pour a little bit of olive oil over it and keep spreading it over the pan. Get as much of the pan covered as you can, but don't worry if it's not totally covered. It'll spread out more as you move the onions around on the griddle. Alrighty then. We've got some fat down on the griddle, and now I'm going to put some generous handfuls of onion right down on top of the oil. Don't be shy, you're going to want plenty for these burgers. Start spreading those onions out so they cover your entire flat top and you've got a nice bed of them to put your burgers on. I'm going to turn this griddle top so it's completely over the hot coals from end to end. This will help you cook your burgers evenly. I've split up the hamburger meat into 4 half-pound meatballs. One of these is going to be a regular burger for an onion hater in the family. Don't worry, kiddo, Dad still loves you. Put the meatballs on top of the onions and use your spatula to press them down into patties. Now I know you've always been told never to press down on a burger while you're cooking it, but it's okay when you first put it on. You're not going to squeeze any juice out of it at this point. Once you've got your patties on the bed of onions, close up the lid and let these cook like this for about 10 minutes. Now these are cooking up real nice. The onions have cooked up nicely and the burgers are ready to be flipped. Move your griddle away from the coals. If you have a small grill, you can take the griddle top off and set it to the side while you flip these burgers. A lot of onion was pressed into the meat when we flattened them out, so make sure you get your spatula up under the onions. Gently flip them over directly onto the grill grate. Scoop up any onions that fall off the grate and put them back onto your burger. Let's try that again. Didn't I say gently flip them over? Okay. And gently flip them over. That's better. No matter how careful you are, you're going to have some onions fall off onto the grill, so don't worry about the mess. Just put them back on top. Alright, these babies are ready to go back over the fire. My burgers are fairly thick and the charcoal has cooled a bit by this point, so we're going to cook these over direct heat for about 5 to 6 minutes. Set the onions aside, but make sure they'll stay warm. Now I'll just set this sad, lonely, onionless burger onto the grill. Putting a dimple on the top of the burger helps reduce shrinkage when cooked directly over hot coals. Now I'll close up the lid and let these cook. Sounds to me like a good time to go grab a beer. Oh man, will you look at that. After a little time and a lot of patience, these burgers are ready to come off of the coals. And they smell as good as they look too. I'm just going to put these on the far end of the grill to rest for a little bit. And it looks like it's time to flip this shamefully naked burger as well. To me, it's just plain wrong to not put cheese on a burger. So we're going to put some Swiss American cheese slices on these, but you use whatever you like. Now close up the lid for a few minutes to let that cheese melt. And now these burgers are done. Sakes alive, don't those look good. I'm sure there's some lettuce lovers and food police types out there that are just wetting themselves over these right now. But I don't care. Y'all can just find yourself a safe space. We're going to get these ready to eat. Give me a bit and I'll get these plated up and let you have a better look at one of these beauties. Now that's a burger. I'm going to cut this open so you can take a look inside. Are you getting hungry yet? I know I am. Now, I do apologize for being so messy, but as we all know, if the burger don't get all over, it's not a good one. And that means there's only one thing left to say.
So remember, the next time you want to create a masterpiece in your backyard, come see what's possible at Fat Mike's Pet.